What's up YouTube? It's Brian with Swink MMA, and today I'm going to be breaking down the 4 top fights from UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Till. I'm going to be breaking down these matchups, discussing the strengths, weaknesses of these 8 fighters, who I feel is going to get their hand raised and how they're going to do it. So whether you like to wager on the fights or you just want to have a basic understanding of who's fighting on the card, don't worry, I got you covered. First fight I'm going to talk about is classic wrestler versus striker match, Esparza versus Rodriguez. Then we'll be getting into Gustafsson's heavyweight debut as he takes on the former heavyweight champion Fabricio Werdum. Then it'll be the slugfest, the battle of the old heads, Shogun taking on Little Nog for the 3rd time. And finally, the main event, the former middleweight champion coming off his tough loss against Adesanya, taking on Darren Till, who's still looking to prove himself in the division. So if you're interested, smash that like button and let's get started. All right, so first let's talk about Carla Esparza, Cookie Monster as she's known, taking on Rodriguez. Now, Esparza, her strengths, she is a classic wrestler. She loves to take the fight down to the mat and ground and pound her opponents, smother them, wear them out on the ground. All right, now she does have some explosiveness in her hands. She can rock some people, but her bread and butter is the wrestling game, and that's what she's gonna be looking for. Let's talk about her weaknesses. Her size is definitely a disadvantage. She's only 5'1". She's fighting someone who's 5'6", and knows how to use her size efficiently. So that could become a major problem for her. It's just the size difference. Now, another weakness, something I've noticed watching quite a few of her fights, is as the fight goes on, she becomes more and more tired and her techniques become more and more predictable. Obviously, that's the case for a lot of people when they get tired. Their shots don't have the same burst, same amount of steam, but it seems like every one of her setups are very similar in regard to how she's trying to grasp for the leg, trying to shoot in and get that takedown. So if Rodriguez is smart, she's going to look to capitalize. Now, what Esparza wants to look for and how she's going to win this game is she's going to want to keep the distance close. She's going to want to keep a very solid Thai striker off balance, keep her out of rhythm in regard to her stand-up, and be able to close that distance quickly and go to her natural game, take down to the ground and pound, smother, beat up the opponent, and win via points. Very rarely does she finish someone, and really her last 3 wins have all been via decision. I don't see this being a stoppage in regard to Esparza's ability to stop the fight. I think Rodriguez is much too skilled for that, but she can win via points and by smothering and dominating the fight on the ground. Now, a big reason why I feel like this fight cannot stay on the feet for Esparza is because of the striking skills of Rodriguez. She is a savage when it comes to the clinch. Elbow works from inside and her knees are vicious. She can throw knees to the head, the body, all within a tight clinch. And she knows how to control especially smaller opponents, which obviously Esparza is. Now, talking about her strengths, again, she's an incredible Thai fighter, great straight down the pipeline strikes, great elbows and knees from both the clinch and outside the clinch. So look for her to capitalize on those. And finally, she knows how to keep the distance, especially against much smaller opponents. She knows her range, she knows where she feels comfortable, and once she gets into rhythm, she stays in that range and will create problems and havoc. Now, some of the weaknesses I see, I wish she would use her jab a little bit more effectively. All right, it helps with keeping her opponents in her perfect range. All right, and it's an irritant. All right, it bugs the fighters when they're always getting jabs peppered in their face. I know it's not traditional for Thai fighters to use the jabs as frequently as boxing, but if she incorporated that a little bit, I think it could really improve. So I wish she would use her jab a little bit more. Now, Rodriguez is susceptible to takedowns. She has a decent defense, but against solid wrestlers, it's proven that it can be a big vulnerable spot in her game. And that's where she has lost some rounds recently. Even though she's undefeated, she's had a 10-8 round because her opponent was smothering her and beating her up on the ground. So her game plan is definitely keep the fight on the feet and standing, trading punches. All right, where she can keep Esparza at her range and be able to use her strikes effectively. So my prediction for the fight and how I see this going, I see it being essentially Rodriguez being able to pick apart Esparza with her strikes and wearing her out to where Esparza just doesn't have much in the tank by the mid to late third round. This is where Rodriguez has shown that she can still be super effective, especially on her feet. And this is where I see the finish coming, and the finish being via way of knee. She's got a tremendous knee. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a knee knockout. She's going to be out, Esparza's going to be out cold, but definitely look for a solid knee coming down the pipe or from the clinch to where it's going to be the lead up to the TKO finish. Okay, next we've got the heavyweight debut of Alexander Gustafsson taking on the former heavyweight champion Fabricio Werdum. Now, I'm really thrilled about this fight. I think Gustafsson has looked huge, relatively speaking. He's still going to be a small heavyweight, but I think he has really added on a good amount of weight, and I think he will be a formidable heavyweight. Now, one of the huge advantages that I'm really looking forward to seeing is how fast and how quick he can stay and maintain in the heavyweight division. Now, his strengths are definitely his stand-up game, his boxing, his footwork, being able to reset a scramble and get back to the center of the octagon and be able to reestablish his control over the stand-up game. He's got very good head movement, he's got quick feet, and now I believe he becomes one of the most agile and well-rounded stand-up fighters in the heavyweight division. I don't know many other heavyweights in the UFC right now that have his same level of footwork. Now, one of his other strengths is definitely his takedown defense. He has given some of the best wrestlers in the light heavyweight division tons of problems over the years with being able to escape from takedown, work away from the fence, and being able to create that space and prevent the takedown, keep it standing where he feels most comfortable. Now, where he does struggle at times that I've seen is in his clinch work. All right, he has been known to get roughed up and beat up inside the clinch from some savvy fighters. I feel like he was winning the fight against Anthony Smith about a year ago, but ended up getting beat in the clinch work, getting caught, getting put into a bad position, and then ultimately getting submitted by Smith, when I feel like Gustafsson was well ahead in the cards by that point. One of the other quiet weaknesses not many people mention is the fact that quitting and retiring has already crossed his mind. And in that fight game, you've got to have a mindset that is in it 100%. And if there's any sort of doubt, that doubt will begin to grow and escalate and creep up to where you don't have the same type of confidence walking into the octagon that you did before. So having a bit of that doubt creep in the past, who knows if he gets put into a bad spot, if Werdum's got him on his back and roughing him up a little bit, can he mentally withstand, or is he going to check out internally and move on? All right, so is his mindset completely right? Now, it can be, and I hope it is, because I really am a big fan of Gus, and I think that he has a lot of potential, and I'm really curious to see what he can do in this new division. But can he now get past that roadblock that he's quit before? Can that now creep back in to where he can justify internally in the heat of the moment that he feels okay to quit again and give up? Now, as for the ability of Werdum and the ability for him to be able to impose that type of will and domination over Gustafsson, do I feel like he can do that? No. I believe that he's well past his prime. I think this is more of a tune-up fight for Gustafsson. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a ton of respect for Werdum. He's a former UFC heavyweight champion and is a legend in the sport. All right, but he is past his prime. He's 42 years old. He does not have the same type of pop, energy, takedown, aggression that he once did, and I haven't seen him on his back working his jiu-jitsu like he did 10, 12 years ago, submitting guys left and right. But he is well past the prime of his career, which leads me into some of his weaknesses. For one, he doesn't have the same gas tank like he used to. He gets fatigued, if it even makes it to those later rounds. So some of his weaknesses definitely is just his age. All right, his body is not what it used to be, and his cardio is not what it used to be. I don't see his gas tank really being able to survive and pushing through into those later rounds. Now, Werdum's game plan in order to beat Gus is going to have to keep the fight dirty and in the clinch work, keep it a nasty, dirty boxing type of fight, work the fight to the ground, and try and win that direction. Now, he's a 42-year-old savvy veteran, but speed, quickness, agility, stamina is not on his side anymore. And he's going to have to find a quick, clever way to capitalize on those small openings and opportunities that Gustafsson is going to present to him throughout the fight. So the outcome of this fight is going to come down to Gustafsson weathering the onslaught and the energy bursts of Werdum, being able to handle that, keep working his counter strikes until he sees Werdum start really fading about midway through the second round. Then you'll start seeing the aggression come from Gustafsson, start using his jab to set up the back uppercut. And that's my prediction for how it's going to finish, is an uppercut that's going to rock Werdum. I don't know if it'll be one of those out cold uppercuts, but definitely shake him to where it's the beginning of the end, and that will lead to the finale. Now on to the Battle of the Old Heads, where you've got Shogun Rua taking on Rogerio Nogueira, Little Nog, and for the third time in the last 15 years. All right, they fought once back in Pride, they fought a few years back in the UFC. Both fights ended up with Shogun getting the decision win, so Little Nog really is looking to get his first W against this former Grand Prix middleweight champion and former UFC light heavyweight champion. Now for Shogun, his strengths are by far his hands. He's got incredibly heavy hands. He comes from the same fight school as Wanderlei Silva, and that's what they do down there. They breed brawlers. Shogun likes to push the pace. He likes to be that aggressive fighter, and he's got a wealth of experience. This is his 39th pro fight, and he's been around the block fighting and knocking out some of the best fighters in both heavyweight, light heavyweight, middleweight division for the last 20 years. Now, his biggest weakness is unfortunately his age. Just like Werdum and just like his opponent, Little Nog, he's up there in his late 30s. And he can also be quite reckless. When he's standing in there trading and banging with his opponents, he does leave himself vulnerable, just like his training partner, Wanderlei Silva. Very, very exciting to see those type of fights. But you've seen Silva have plenty of highlight knockouts and been knocked out on the highlight reel plenty of times. Shogun is very similar to that, where he's not afraid to sit there and trade and bang back and forth. So that does create quite a bit of vulnerability for him. So Shogun's game plan is definitely going to be to keep it on his feet, standing, trading with Little Nog, but not to get too reckless. He wants to try and keep things as straight as possible, real tight hooks, tight uppercuts, avoid the just wild haymaker slugfest that could pose major problems for him. And definitely to avoid the jiu-jitsu of Little Nog. Now granted, Shogun is a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to take anything away from him, but the Nogueiras are a different breed when it comes to jiu-jitsu royalty. They are a class on their own, and definitely I feel like Little Nog's got the superiority when it comes to the jiu-jitsu game. So there's no real reason for Rua to want to take it to the ground. I see him just standing, banging, looking for his opportunity and finding his shot. Now for Rogerio Nogueira, he's definitely got something to prove. He has lost twice over the last 15 years to Shogun, and he definitely wants to end his career. Not saying this is going to be the end of his career, but this is probably his last staple, landmark, big name fight that he will end up having in the UFC, and I know that he wants to finish it on top. So his strengths definitely are his boxing and his jiu-jitsu. His boxing, he's got heavy hands in both, and he's a pretty technical puncher. Now regarding his jiu-jitsu, I don't think anybody's going to question that. He's a third-degree black belt. in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and is a legend within that sport. And finally, his experience is a huge strength for him. He's 44 years old and he's been fighting for almost 20 years professionally. And actually, him and Shogun have very similar opponents. They've both fought some of the biggest names in the UFC and mixed martial arts history. Now, his weaknesses, on the other hand, are, I feel, a little bit more glaring than Shogun's, where his age has really begun to show. Now, he hasn't fought all that much in the last few years, but I guarantee you he hasn't gotten much better from that rest and that time off. Spanning the last 6 years, he's had 6 fights. 4 of them have been losses, 3 of those losses via knockout. So his chin is definitely a weak point. His body and his chin just can't take the same amount of beatings that it used to back when he was in his mid to late 20s, early 30s in the prime of his career. Little Nog's game plan has got to be the smarter fighter, the smarter boxer, and to try and land that overhand right. That overhand right has done wonders for him throughout his career, and I guarantee any other light heavyweight that gets hit by it will feel it and is susceptible to getting put down. But do I feel like that's going to happen? Unfortunately not. I feel like this is going to be another decision victory win for Shogun. And now for the main event, Robert Whittaker, the former middleweight champion, taking on Darren Till, making his second fight in this division. Now, talking about the former champion Whittaker, coming off a bad loss to Adesanya, I know he's going to be out looking to prove something. Now, his strengths, where he stands apart, I'm going to be focusing mainly on his stand-up skills. His left hand, even though he's an orthodox fighter, his lead left hook, his jab, his lead uppercut, very savvy and very effective. Till knows that left hand is something to look out for. Also, Whittaker has got incredible counterpunching. He's a very savvy fighter, knows how to use his angles, and knows how to create misdirection for his opponent. Now, discussing his weaknesses, he really doesn't have many. He was a former champion for a reason. He was one of the best in the world for a reason. There's not many flaws to his game. The only thing I can think of might be just the after effects of coming off of such a bad knockout loss to Adesanya last year. Now, he mentioned he needed to step away from the sport, take a break, kind of regroup and regather himself, which hopefully he's done, because he's only 28 years old. It would be such a waste for him to already start mentally breaking down and looking to do something else at this point, when we have at least another 4, 5, 6 years of potential greatness out of him. So hopefully his mental fortitude doesn't become a weakness to where it makes him a little bit of a softer fighter. Whittaker's game plan, I think, is going to be very simple. It's going to be using angles successfully, getting inside, and being able to exploit Till's weaknesses, really, which I feel is a stationary head. As the fight progresses, Till's head becomes very stationary and kind of set up on a platter for his opponents. Hence the Jorge Masvidal fight, which, if Whittaker can capitalize on that, he could see a victory in his sights. Now, regarding Darren Till, what an incredible prospect. He's had a couple of setbacks over the last few fights and few experiences, but I think it's all just developing and building for this Brit, who I think is gonna be a staple in this division for probably the next 5, 6, 7 years. Now, Till's strengths rely heavily in his stand-up ability. He's a very sound, crisp, fundamental striker that knows how to throw precision strikes right down the pipe, and also he's really pretty solid at bringing his hands back up to his face. He's good at using his size and his body weight to control the opponents, and also using his long arms to maintain a good distance in relationship to his opponent. Now, I see a few weaknesses in Till's game, which I could see him easily fixing, correcting, and making improvements on him as his career progresses. One of them, his head becomes very stationary. I'd like to see a little bit more slipping, changing of levels, and just being able to keep his opponents off guard and not just laying up a big bullseye target for his opponents to tee off on. Also, because of his natural aggression and him liking to push the pace of the fight, I see him being very susceptible to takedowns. That aggression can get a little carried away sometimes, to where a smart, savvy fighter like Whittaker can easily shoot in, dump down, and take the fight to the ground, which I don't believe Till wants. He does have good scramble and can get back to his feet well, but I know he wants to stay in his routine and in his rhythm to keep the fight on the feet. I see Till's game plan is very straightforward. He's going to want to push the pace and make Whittaker fight his game. He's going to try and use his size and strength to his advantage, push Whittaker up against the cage, and use some of his dirty boxing techniques and some of his incredible elbows from the clinch to try and really rock Whittaker and end up take the fight. My outcome for this fight is Whittaker being the smarter, savvy fighter, really taking advantage of his opportunities. He's going to land the left hand. I do think this is going to be a good learning experience for Till in the new division, but I do think that the savvy, veteran, former champion Whittaker is going to come out on top. And my prediction for this fight is a 4th round TKO win for Robert Whittaker. So I'm really excited about this card. I think this is one of the best lineups and best cards that a fight night has had in quite some time. So if you like my predictions, please smash that like button and consider subscribing. On this channel, I plan on not only talking about UFC fights, but also just the world of martial arts in general. From mixed martial arts to traditional martial arts, I have over 30 years of teaching, training, and studying the martial arts world. And I plan on bringing you not only self-defense and striking techniques, but just videos, entertaining videos about the world of martial arts and spreading the message of martial arts. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your thoughts and predictions down in the comments section, and enjoy Fight Night Whittaker versus Till. We'll see you next time.